just enough time for me to figure out this Twitter machine. Except for my stupid fat thumbs, I can't get this thing to paste in here for me. Yep, it's a fat thumb day. This ain't gonna work. I'm just retweeting.
Yes.
There we go. Nice and promoted. There we go. Everybody out there in TV land can see us now. Good morning also. Good morning to you too, Kevin Smith, if you can hear the sound of my voice. Are you the Kevin Smith or just a Kevin Smith? Not that there's anything wrong with not being the Kevin Smith.
I feel like that's an incredibly common name. That's the type of name you take, you make a Facebook event and all the Kevin Smiths meet. Listen, guys.
It'd be a pretty big party. The question is, though, does the Kevin Smith show up for that? I feel like he would.
I feel like he would have to.
Yeah. You get it on his radar? He's a big social media guy. You get it on his radar? I feel like he'd be there. Good morning, Awesemo MLB fans. We've got a Friday show. Happy Friday to everybody. Happy Fat Thumb Day. Happy Kevin Smith Day. Terry McBride here talking MLB strategy with Gundacker. Gun, how you doing, buddy?
Isn't there a catcher named Kevin Smith? I think we just foreshadowed.
I think we've had a few Kevin Smiths come through baseball now that you mention it. You're right.
But it's like Kevan.
Hey, yeah.
Okay. So if he pops the slate, he's going to homer now just because we made that. Good morning. A lot of rain tonight, Terry.
Oh, man, this is a mess. I don't know if you saw it. Some of the DFS weathermen last night on Twitter were just like, what are you drinking out of that mason jar? Real quick, you just derailed me by picking that up. What was that?
It's a smoothie.
All right. Sorry, I'm a big mason jar guy, and you being down in Texas there, mason jar, just wondering what we were getting in the morning. But yeah, we've got weather all over the place. The DFS weathermen were kind of giving us a fair warning on Twitter last night saying, hey, tonight we've got a little bit, but tomorrow is going to be a total disaster. So it looks to me like we've got like 6 games that are kind of threatened. Do you have any overarching thoughts? I mean, just looking at the board, it's Milwaukee at Washington, New York, the Yanks at Detroit, Atlanta at the Mets, Toronto at Cleveland, Baltimore at Chicago, and Miami at Boston. All are kind of threatened by rain. Any real like overarching thoughts on any of those? Any that look worse to you than others?
Well, weather-wise, I don't know, but the initial thought is, what does it do for me in pitching access? And really, the only pitcher it's going to yank for me is Garrett Cole, maybe Ian Anderson, or I would say potentially yank for me based on what actually happens. But if you have this slate, potentially without Garrett Cole, without Ian Anderson, the pitching options get really, really, really short and not the best. Or I guess maybe they saved us Ohtani for what was it? The bus was late, but it wasn't. They tweeted out, "No, we weren't late. Don't put that on us." So maybe Ohtani's ownership will inflate based on the outcome of some of the early rain games.
Yeah, so that's an interesting wrinkle, and we should touch on that real quick because it is slate relevant for FanDuel. Ohtani is a $4,000 outfielder on the FanDuel slate. He is not a pitcher on FanDuel.
My God.
You can even shorter over there. Oof. Yeah. Now, we've got him projected at the top of ownership standings. I am not 100% sure if we're accounting for that in the ownership there, so keep an eye on that, guys, as it goes through the day. That might get corrected, but yeah, we do not have Ohtani. So I'm with you. If we lose Garrett Cole off of this, and then Ian Anderson was another of my higher projected pitchers. So losing the 2 of them, actually that would be the top 2, and then Ohtani is 3rd on my board there. So taking 3 of those guys off the top gets me to like Walker Buehler as my top projected pitcher. I like Walker Buehler. It's not an easy matchup. We'll get into the game by game of it all, but we've got a lot to talk through here with 12 games on the slate. We're brought to you today by PrizePicks, you guys. We'll get into a little bit about them in a little bit. But before we move on, hit the like, hit the subscribe down the bottom there. You guys know what's going on. You know the deal. This show is going to be up on your favorite podcast network later on in the day, just like all the strategy shows, just like all the evergreen content that we do. We put it up there so that you don't have to be here live. You can catch us at your convenience through the day, still get all the great information. if you're downloading our podcasts, even if you're not, even if you just like us, you feel like doing us a favor, jump into your favorite podcast network, leave a 5-star review. We're giving away a week of Awesemo Plus once a week for people who have left us a 5-star review. Your review's good for up to a year. So jump in there, download, give us a 5-star review, like and subscribe. We've got free top pitchers on the site tonight, free main slate ownership for NBA and NHL playoffs. A lot going on, ton to get into. So taking a look at our slate here, we've got, let's see, top of the list here, Brewers going into Washington facing the Nationals in one of those rain-contested games. Got the Brewers with Brett Anderson on the hill. That's with John Lester going. 9-run total in this one. That might be a little low with these two pitchers. 4.38 implied total for the Brewers, 4.7 implied total for the Nats. What are you thinking on this one, Gun? Where do you want to take us?
Yeah, 2 contact lefties, high xFIP, swing and strike rate on Brett Anderson. Somehow half of what John Lester's is so far. Really would not have an interest on throwing either pitcher. Like you mentioned, one of the games affected by rain, and we know Washington is way more volatile than every other team when it comes to making these decisions. So they might play this game in full rain, and then they'll cancel when the sprinkler goes off. Yeah, no pitcher for me. I think both offenses are justifiable. The Brewers are just less warm and fuzzy when it comes to stacking. They're becoming a little bit more interesting lineup-wise against lefties. This projected lineup that we have, Lorenzo Cain, Christian Yelich, Avisail Garcia, Manny Pena. Like, there's some bats I would take as chip in a chair against Lester. And then, if these games did play, they'd probably still play wet. So these contact pitchers, get these baseballs rolling in the elements, maybe some sloppy defense and some more extreme batted ball event outcomes. So I can see myself with a couple of these Brewers bats. Again, not warm and fuzzy on them as a team, but I could justify them individually. And then Trey Turner and Juan Soto are always in play. But as you gamble on whether or not this game gives you 9 innings, you got to understand that they're $6K a piece, and that's a tall order. But yeah, I'm more interested in the bats than the pitchers.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a bats kind of a game, and one that we're definitely going to be watching the weather. The weather's not going to help us on the home run hitting side. But to your point, these are contact pitchers. This is a game that could go, 7-6 without too many home runs hit. So we could definitely see some offense here. Kiston Hiura coming back for the Brewers is a little bit interesting too. He's a solid stick. I know he had a struggle to start the season this year. They sent him down, but he's back up in the lineup and could turn things around. So somebody to look out for there. Moving on to our next one. I think we said everything we need to say about that game. We've got the Braves with Ian Anderson on the hill going into Queens, taking on the Mets with the renewed Taijuan Walker on the hill. 7-run total in this one. The visiting Braves are favored. 3.9 implied total for the Braves, 3.2 implied total for the Mets. What are we thinking in this one, Gun? Assuming that it plays, let's kind of take these assuming that they go as far as the pitchers, because I do think Ian Anderson's at least worth talking about here.
Yeah, if this game is a full go, I'm definitely an investor in Ian Anderson. He would probably project easily as a top 3, top 4 option for me. 11.8% swing and strike rate. Parlay that with a sub 4 Sierra, a sub 3.5 xFIP. ERA is outperforming that, but it's not like his advanced metrics are terrible. What is terrible are the Mets. They're pretty lackluster. Only 2 of their bats, Lindor and Jose Peraza, with a sub 20% K rate. The rest of this lineup is pretty swing happy. And I don't even think this is their B lineup. This is like their C lineup, right? No Conforto, no McNeil. It gets pretty ugly. So I definitely think there's plenty of strikeout potential in this Mets lineup. If I was going to take some shots on the bats, I've been a sucker for just playing Jonathan VR at the top of the lineup. If he gets on, he can swipe a bag. If he makes contact, he does have home run power. So every now and then he'll fill out a lineup, but it's definitely not a lineup I'm overly interested into stacking. When it comes to Taijuan Walker, his ERA is outperforming his Sierra by almost 100%. 4.37 Sierra, 4.12 xFIP. ERA is at 2.05 with a 10% swing and strike rate, sub 1 WHIP. Those numbers say he's a lot bit on the lucky side. I don't really get up in the morning to pitch against the Braves if they're going to be fully healthy. Ronald Acuna, Freeman, Albie. So I probably don't get to Walker here. And I'd probably get to some of these Braves probably some of these Brave stacks if the game played. Now, like you said, like this far out, we're just gonna have to assume everything's going, and we'll do our analysis, and then later we'll put the weather report on it. But I think the Braves are stackable just about every slate they're on, especially against average to average minus pitching.
Yeah, for sure. One of my go-to teams in terms of offense whenever they're on a slate, and particularly, facing a pitcher who has been, 4.12 xFIP even for Taijuan Walker is somewhat respectable, 23.7% strikeout rate, sure, but he is still putting guys on base via the free pass. And these Braves just are professional hitters who hit right-handed pitching very well, despite being a fairly right-handed lineup. So, yeah, I'm with you. I would fire up the Brave side of things, both on the mound and in the bats. And then I agree, VR is an interesting, for a one-off to include in some Mets stacks if you're going that way. Francisco Lindor, Mets fans, good news. Only 4 more hits, and he's down to $1 million a hit this season, so that's great. But I think we can move on from this game. Not too much else to cover here. Before we do, guys, we've got all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for every DFS sport out there. You can jump on those with our weekly pass. We've got all sorts of different tiers and pricing plans, something to fit everybody's DFS needs and budget. But the best bang for your buck, jump on the weekly pass, $29.95, includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, the lineup builder, everything that you could need to start winning, stop guessing and start winning. Looking to play MLB DFS? Sign up now for our Awesemo Plus MLB weekly package for $15.95. It gives you, all the stuff that I just said there. So stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today, guys. One more time, we've got free stuff up on the site today. MLB top starters, NBA and NHL main slate ownership projections for the playoffs. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, guys. Get all those notifications to pop up for you when we go live with shows like this. Moving on, we've got the Blue Jays with Hyunjin Ryu on the hill going into Cleveland facing the Indians, who have Eli Morgan making his debut. 7.5 run total. The Blue Jays heavily favored, 4.19 implied total, 3.4 total for the Cleveland Indians. Gun, I assume we're not going to Eli Morgan here. Any love for Ryu?
Yeah. The asterisk weather, but Ryu against the Indians for sure. The Blue Jays didn't tax their bullpen as much as you might think yesterday with the doubleheader. But I still think Ryu's he is their ace, and he's the guy you expect them to go out deeper. And depending on how things shake out, we talked about what could be a top 3, top 4 option. Ryu could bump up there if we lose 2 of these other pitchers, and he might end up being one of my highest owned. I think 8.4K is probably too cheap regardless. Indians have a couple of bats that you do that are menacing against lefties. Rosario, J-Ram, Luplo are the main 3 that kind of scare me. But I still think he can eat enough innings. I don't think you're targeting the Indians for like a big strikeout day, but at 8.4K on DraftKings, I think he can knock on the door 20 DKP, and that might be a magical number tonight.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be interesting too. I'm curious to see where he comes down. I'm not getting my ownership number to pop up because of the naming convention that I haven't fixed in my sheet here. But I think at 9,600, he's going to be interesting on that Fanduel slate too, particularly if we lose a few pitchers. Hopefully we don't get people rushing over to him, and he might have a little bit of room there where he's got some upside facing this Indians lineup. I agree. It's not a great spot for strikeouts, but he's going to become one of the better pitchers if this one goes and some of those others don't. 2.8% walk rate this year is excellent. Really pitching well, 24.6% strikeouts, 3.0 xFIP. Really like the spot there. Any love for bats going back against, if you're grabbing some Blue Jays going up against Eli Morgan, who hasn't pitched in the majors yet?
Yeah, I don't know what much to expect from Eli. So I can imagine he's a replacement level player when you don't have anything. But there's a good chance he's less than. Blue Jays bats are fine in this spot. Bo Bichette hit a pair of bombs yesterday in each game, one in the early, one in the late. Vladdy has been on fire. A lot of MVP talk for Vladdy here, and this is, I want to see him do some of this stuff in some non-AL East parks here. So this would be a good series to be watching him. I'll grab some Blue Jays bats. I think they're all the names like Semien, Bichette, Vladdy, Teoscar, even Grichuk. Like I'd take 1 through 5 pretty commonly and be okay with whatever happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is a lineup that people are kind of getting to know at this point, and I think everybody knows who the prime players in it are. I would definitely not have an issue going as far down as Lourdes Gurriel, though. A lot of talent in that kid, and he's underpriced right now for the lack of performance that he's given us so far. But I think there's definitely talent there. Moving on to the next one of this first block here, we've got the I lost it. We've got the Yanks, our Yankees, with Garrett Cole, the aforementioned Garrett Cole, going into Detroit, facing Casey Mize for the Tigers. 7-run total for this one. Yanks heavy favorites with Cole on the hill. 4.3 implied total for the Yanks, 2.8 implied total for the Tigers. I assume this is all about Garrett Cole on the pitching side of things. Any love for Casey Mize going against our Yankees? A couple shares of him, or is he too dicey?
So Yankees are 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards when it comes to injuries lately. Luke Voigt, we were expecting to lose due to paternity, but we actually lost him to oblique. I think there's another. I think it might be LeMahieu. There's somebody else that's about to have a kid in the realms here. And then we lost Aaron Hicks for the season. So today we got Giancarlo Stanton back, presumably, and we sent back down Florial. So this lineup doesn't look the worst when it comes to what the Yankees could throw out, but it's still a lineup that's going to be probably 4-man heavy. LeMahieu, Stanton, maybe 5-man Judge, Urshela, and Glaber, and then the bottom half just kind of gets a little iffy. So I don't have any interest in Mize, but I could, like, it wouldn't stun me if another average pitcher has a solid game against the Yankees. But I think this spot I'm way more inclined to bet on the Yankees bats than Mize coming through. And then, like I say, Garrett Cole would easily be the ace of the slate, probably the projected higher scorer if it's a clean sheet weather-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Going up against the weakest lineup in the league, basically striking out 27.6% of the time against right-handed pitching this year, creating runs 13% worse than average, 143 team ISO against righties. So definitely a killer spot for him. They're actually a lot worse against lefties, but we'll take what we get. It's a great spot for Garrett Cole. You're paying for him. Everybody's going to be there if this game goes. The weather's really the only thing that would keep me off of a big amount of Cole shares here, though, I think. Any love for Tigers is like a wildly contrarian stack going back against them? Do you ever get into throwing stacks back that way like that?
Sometimes I will if there's like a glaring weakness, like if a guy has like Cole has had a home run bug to lefties. We haven't seen that really come to play so far this year. But there's not even like a lefty. Maybe a kill bad dude. There's not really a lefty on the Tigers that I would bank on here. So this is one of the rare times where I wouldn't hedge against my highest owned pitcher, because I don't think the wheels just fall off for Garrett Cole. Even his bad games, he just kind of gets through for average results, and it doesn't really pay off a stack.
Yeah, and that's one, for me, I'm with you on that. That's one where I do like to go after some highly owned pitchers, maybe some guys who are considered high-level pitchers, but when it's these apex predator aces, it's a stay-away spot for me. It's not a spot where I'm going to attack these, 10, 12 strikeout potential type guys, and these are just absolute aces. So speaking of apex predators, guys, let's talk about our sponsor, PrizePicks. They're helping you say goodbye to sharks. They are offering the simplest fantasy game on the market. They want you to say goodbye to the sharks, say goodbye to the lineup optimizers, say goodbye to mass multi-entry. You have to pick 2, 3, 4, or 5 players. That's it. That is not very difficult. Pick those guys off the board to go over or under their projected score. If you correctly select a 5-player lineup, that can net you up to 10 times your entry fee. From NFL and NBA to esports, PrizePicks has it. You can combine your picks across all the sports available. So you can go through, you can grab 2 from the NBA, 1 from NHL, 2 from MLB. There's your 5 picks. Bang, 10x entry. Not bad. Download the mobile app in the App Store or on Google Play today. Make your first deposit to receive an instant deposit match of up to $100 when you use promo code Awesemo. That's pretty easy to spell, Awesemo. Come on, pop it in there. Simplified daily fantasy with PrizePicks today. Gun, you play on PrizePicks. We were talking about it before the show. Any picks lined up in your head that you're already looking at for today, or anything that you might be considering? I'm not sure if you've taken a look yet. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but what would you be taking a look at on PrizePicks if you've got something handy?
Man, so I do like looking at their pitcher props, their K props. But with the weather today, I didn't want to commit to any of those. I do
Fair.
usually I'll just compare the bomb detector to the fantasy score. There, the hits and walks is always really tough because it's basically 1.5 for everyone, and betting 2 hits for anybody is rough. So I really like the fantasy scores for the hitters, and then the K props and the fantasy props for the pitchers. Yesterday, I had a really nice ticket going. Joey Gallo was the only bum, so I had to flex it. But I love PrizePicks. I think it's a lot of fun. For NBA, it's also a lot of fun in the playoffs because we get these 40-minute players and the sweat's not over at half. Anything could happen. So I think that's what I love the most. You can piece together all these different sports for the same one, and you basically laying money on a prop line without having to shop the best odds. It's basically just an even chance to hit your parlay. So not going to tax you or vig you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to do it. And if you're happen to be in a sport where you can't normally bet on these things, you can at least skill game on these kinds of things now. So yeah, very cool. Nice offering from PrizePicks, our new sponsor here. I'm psyched to get on the site and check them out. So guys, one more time, deposit match up to $100 when you use promo code Awesemo. Download PrizePicks today and get on there. Next game up on the board, we've got the Marlins with Cody Poteet going into Boston, facing the Red Sox with Martin Perez on the hill. 9-run total in this one, 3.98 implied total for the Marlins, 5.13 for the Red Sox. Talk to me about Martin Perez. Talk to me about the mighty Red Sox offense. Any love for the Marlins? What do you like in this one?
So again, this is one of those 3 games that had the red light involved in it. So it wouldn't be overcommittal to this game. But I also just like you likely don't catch me playing Martin Perez on a 12-game slate ever. So I don't see that would happen with or without rain. And then Cody Poteet, the Red Sox offense, really not something I'm something to pick on this year. They've been really, really good. So if we do get to this game, it's likely just attacking Fenway. And I'm more onto the Red Sox side, but with Martin Perez being typically a contact pitcher with a little bit of power, not a lot allowed to righties, it would be like Jesus Aguilar, maybe Adam Duvall, guys that I already know have some power against lefties, and Martin Perez is going to challenge him to make contact. So that's probably it. It's bats only, Red Sox more so than the Marlins, and this definitely seems like one of those games we're not going to get though.
Yeah, this was one of the more danger looking spots for sure. So we probably shouldn't spend too much time. We do have a bunch to get through. It's the obvious power bats for me if this game does go on the Red Sox side of things. We all know the names. They're kind of popping through the top of my home run model. As I always throw out there with this team, I certainly wouldn't sleep on Hunter Renfroe and Bobby Dahlbeck toward the bottom of the lineup. They've got plenty of pop down there, hitting some home runs. So I think we can move on from this one. Well, before we do, assuming we go, any love for some maybe contrarian Marlins stacks? Not that Martin Perez is going to be super owned, but they're going to be very low owned. And you did mention there was some righty power on there, so you did just talk that through. My bad. Let's move. So, well, good job anticipating the question. That's the Royals with Chris Bubich on the hill going into Minnesota with Randy Dobnak. 9-run total in that one, 3.99 implied for the Royals, 5.11 for the Twins, one of the bigger home totals on the board. What do we like about this one?
So this is one of the games that we don't have a weather concern with, but the pitching options really don't stand out to me. Dobnak, I don't think is I don't know if we bank it on him to go 5 yet. He might knock on the door. He went 93 pitches last game, 6 innings against Cleveland. Yeah, so I guess he is stretched out for what they need. So 5'8", 5'8" pitcher that stretched out might be an option on this slate when we start getting some weather decisions. Unfortunately, Royals are a beatable team pitching wise. They on paper they still appear to be a team that I wouldn't think is a great matchup. Merrifield, Santana, Benintendi, Salvi, guys like that. Mondesi's back in the mix. But a 5'8", we might end up taking 10 to 15 from a SB2 when all is said and done. Chris Bubik, Lefty, he has a 9.9% swinging strike rate so far. A Sierra and xFIP sitting around 5 with the ERA under 1.6. So he's due for some regression. Is a ground ball guy, but does have some command issues, a 12.9% walk rate. I do think I like the Twins against the lefty when they are looking a little bit more like this projected lineup: Garlic, Donaldson, Polanco, Nelson Cruz, and Miguel Sano, and Mitch Garver. Yeah. And Rob Refsnyder. This line is pretty nice against lefty. So I'd be on the Twins offense here. I'd be meditating on the viability on Dobnak, with contingent on what we may not have access to after some weather decisions are made, just because of that DraftKings price and nothing else. But I probably don't get to Bubic. And if I was going to pick on Dobnak, it's definitely going to be with a left-handed bat, maybe a Benintendi. Carlos Santana is pretty good to get on base. Those are the two that kind of stand out.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm with you on that Twins lineup. I mean, 1 through 9, that's looking pretty sharp. Even, you get Max Kepler, lefty in the 9 hole. But Andrelton Simmons is a functional wraparound play at the bottom of a stack there. He's a guy who doesn't strike out much, gets on base at a decent clip, and doesn't cost anything. So I like the looks of the Twins. And, yeah, that's a spot where we kind of know to fire away with Twins against the lefty most of the time. Hopefully the public isn't there too much. It looks like early on they're not really crushing at least some of these spots, particularly on DK, where you're getting Nelson Cruz, Miguel Sano all under 10%, Polanco under 10%. So some nice spots in that Twins lineup. I don't hate that by any means. Moving on to the next game on the board, we've got the Orioles with Matt Harvey, who's managing to continue pitching in the major leagues, with going into Chicago facing the White Sox with Dallas Keuchel on the hill. 8.5 run total in this one, 3.48 implied for the visiting Orioles, 5.13 for the mighty White Sox. We like the White Sox bats going up against Matt Harvey here.
Yeah, absolutely. White Sox kind of late bloomers for me yesterday as well. But this is another offense when they're healthy. I like what we can get. It looks like this, if we don't get rain in this game, we might still have to deal with some wind, so kind of be cognitive of that. But yeah, I'll take the White Sox, please. Dallas Keuchel 6.3K right now, no, but like I said, if the options get really low later in the day at 6.3, you might take a shot at him to get you 15 to 20 DKP. But I'm more on the White Sox offense here. If I want to pick on Keuchel, I definitely like some power righties. Freddie Galvis got into one yesterday, I believe. Anthony Santander is still pretty valuable around the cleanup spot, even the 3-hole at 3.13K. But that's kind of it. There's not a whole lot of warm and fuzzy names on the Orioles, but there are some chip and chairs against that Keuchel contact against righties.
Yeah, Keuchel, for me, he's a dart throw of a pitcher from time to time, never on the strikeout side of things, but on a wonky slate where you run out of some pitching options awfully fast. When he's priced like this, going up against not the biggest threat of a lineup with some strikeouts in it, that's the kind of spot where I can maybe consider running out some shares of Keuchel, keep the ball on the ground, keep it in the yard. If he grabs a couple extra strikeouts and we need that value level pitcher on a slate like today, he could maybe make some sense, but it's dicey at best. He's not going to give you tremendous upside. You're looking for him to, kind of come in and book about his median projection for you. Harvey on the other side, I don't think we need any shares of him, but I think fire away with White Sox bats. But like you said, it's all a matter of whether this one plays too. Mm-hmm. So we are making actually pretty good pace here. We've got one game left in this little block and then only 4 more after that one. So let's talk through this one real quick. We've got the Padres with Dinelson Lamet going into Houston. The Astros have Framber Valdez going. 8.5 total on the board, 4.20 implied for the Pods, 4.39 implied for the Astros. I don't really know what to make of this one from a pitching standpoint. I don't know how long we're going to get either pitcher for. Any love for either one of these arms? Is this about the bats? Is it kind of stay away in general? What do you make of this game?
That's it. That's it. What are we getting from either pitcher? I think this is Valdez. Is this his first start on the season?
Yeah.
And I'm looking through the minor league tab, and it looks like he pitched on the 23rd, went 4 innings, gave up 2 hits, and had 2 strikeouts. And then on the 17th, he went 3 innings, 3 strikeouts, 7 hits, 5 runs, but only 1 earned. So I'm guessing some little league baseball occurred there. What we do know is Valdez last year was a solid strikeout guy, 24% K rate to righties, 31% to lefties, keeps the ball on the ground. I think whether or not I get to Valdez would be one, who's available on the pitching slate, and then 2, what's the pitch count? Like, will they give us a number? So the fact that he has 2 games in his belt in the minors coming into this one means I wouldn't guess that he's stretched out, but it probably means that they might expect him to be able to go 5 or 6 if they can handle it. Manny Machado, I believe, is back for the Padres. That's going to make this Padres lineup a lot scarier. They're also going to pick up the DH spot going into this AL park. So becomes a tougher lineup. I have a lot of guys in this Padres lineup that bat 280 plus against lefties. So at best, it's a tough matchup for Valdez. So it's not really a matchup I'd run to, but if at the end of the day, like I said, if we get to really, really thin pitching options, maybe you chip and chair one of these guys. But even Lamet, his strikeout matchup isn't great, and he's a guy that I don't know that we can expect to be extremely stretched out himself. So I'd be more looking at the offenses here, even though I do have respect for these pitchers. But I do like Padres. I like a fully healthy Padres team against a lefty. And then this Astros team at home certainly is menacing in their own right. It's gonna be fun to watch these 10 and 15% K rates go against Lamet's near 30% K rate or 27% and see what wins out here. But I'm on the Padres offense and a little bit of Astros bets.
Yeah, I like that. And the Astros on Fanduel at least are priced down. They've got really low pricing. I don't know if Fanduel was thinking a fully healthy Lamet was going up against them here or what, but looks like the highest price on Fanduel, $3,700 for Jose Altuve, and then everybody else is at $3,300 or less, which is kind of shocking. I expect there's going to be some pretty heavy ownership on the Astros, but it's not projecting that way right now. So that's kind of a jump on spot for me, particularly if we're thinking that Lamet's not long for this game. He gives us 3 or 4. It might, handicap them a little bit, but then getting into the bullpen plus the quality of this team, they're interesting for me tonight. And the Pods aren't all that expensive either and not drawing a ton of ownership either. So it's a really interesting spot depending on what we find out about the pitching. If they came out prices included and popularity included, if you found out it was 85 pitches as a limit for both of these guys, which would you prefer, Lamet or Valdez?
Oh, man, neither one of these teams have like egregious K rates either on this platoon. Probably Lamet. But yeah, there's no confidence in that statement, no conviction.
It didn't sound it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm with you though. It's take the guy who's the higher end strikeout artist in that scenario. But I don't think we're gonna be blessed with that information, unfortunately. So 7K for him if we're only getting like 4 innings. I think that's a little bit dicey, a little bit risky against this team. So makes for a tough spot. And that's the one we're gonna have to watch news on as well if we get any word along with the rain and all these other games. So guys, stick around and follow the news god, hang out in our premium Slack, which is it's a big benefit that we don't talk about a ton on these shows. But when you're a member, you get access to our premium Slack. We've got sports specific channels for everything that we cover, all the different games, be it esports, be it baseball, basketball, football, whatever's going on. It's open 24 hours a day. There's people talking in there all day long. You've got some fun trolls. You've got some great people with some great knowledge and content that are members just like you. You've got the experts like Gun, guys like me hanging around in there answering questions, talking shop all day long. So it's a great resource to take advantage of. You can find it under the social drop down on our homepage. Just jump in there. It's a 2-step process. Get yourself signed up for premium Slack. Pop in, say hi to me. I'm T McB74 in there. Same name is on all the different contests. Jump in there, say hi. I'm always looking to talk shop, answer questions. We've got the Awesemo Hall of Fame rolling as well. I didn't manage to download the list, but congratulations to all our winners that are maybe going to scroll across the screen. I'm not quite sure if we're going to see those, but the Awesemo Hall of Fame works like this, you guys. You can win a free month of Awesemo Platinum Plus, and the only thing you have to do that is come in the top 3 in a contest that has more than 5,000 entries in it. So we've got some names scrolling across the screen right now. There's not a chance I'm going to be able to read those on the screen that I'm looking at. But congrats to all these people. And a lot of you guys know I am the director of customer success over here now. A lot of the time during the day, I'm answering customer support emails, things that come in. This is my favorite part of the day as far as that part of my job goes. I get to see all these people who are just crushing it with our content, with our data, all these people winning a few $100 to absolutely life-changing money. And they're doing it with our tools, with the advice that we give out. It makes me feel good. It really justifies everything we do here. And people are winning. It's just great to see. So I love giving these things away. Keep them coming, guys. Tweet at Awesemo HOF, Awesemo Hall of Fame with a screenshot of your win. And then just get in touch with us on the support handle. We'll get you set up with a free month of Awesemo Plus. Stop guessing, start winning, guys. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We've got 4 more games to go through. We've got a decent amount of time to do it in. No big rush today. We're making good time. First game up out of the break here, we've got the Cardinals with Johan Oviedo going into Arizona, facing Mad Bum, going for the Diamondbacks. 9.5 total on this one. One of the bigger totals on the board. The Cards 4.48 implied total. The Diamondbacks favored with a 5.12. Gun, we liking some offense, or is this maybe a spot to pick off some pitching? What do we think about this game out in the desert?
Well, every time I want to pick on Mad Bum, he throws a gym. But usually, the first thing I look at is the roof open. Right now, the roof is projected to be open, so that's going to create potentially the hottest game of the season. I feel like every game the roof is open, it's the next hottest game of the season. And tonight it looks like it could be almost 100 degrees out there, which might neutralize the humidor a little bit. Oviedo has not been somebody that you run from. He has a 16% carry to lefties with a 186 home run per 9 right now. I do think the sample size will shake out because I don't believe the hard contact rate being 25% and a 52% ground ball. Like, I don't think those two numbers will sustain for that high of a home run per 9. It's a little bit on the unlucky side there, unless the sample size starts tilting that seesaw a little bit more. But we do have a sample size of him against righties being really, really susceptible to power allowed going back to the beginning of last season. So I definitely want to pick on him with righties, but the D-backs may not offer many of those. But at best, he's a contact pitcher in this spot. On the Mad Bum side, we know he has the ability to allow 40+% hard contact to righties. This year, he's finding it a little bit more, keeping that average allowed down, even that power down a little bit, but he is walking people at what has to be a career high rate so far. I got a 15% or almost a 16% walk rate to both sides, or no, I have a 6%. I have to double check.
I got him at 6.3.
Yeah, I have to double check that. I think I'm pulling a wrong stat there. I do like power righties against Mad Bum, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, guys that stick out the most. I do like a lot of these Cardinals bats against a lefty. Edmund, Carlson, Goldie, Arenado, Yachty as the projected 1 through 5 all stick out pretty well for me. So those are the guys I'm interested in. I easily it's the offenses for me, but I'm not shocked if Mad Bum strings together another serviceable game on this slate.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm getting a decent little projection from Mad Bum. He's going to be in my pool, and particularly if things change, if we lose some of those higher end starters, 8,100 is the right price for him on FanDuel, I think, for the projection I'm getting. So he's definitely going to be interesting. It's dicey, man, though, if that roof's open, if we've got all that heat and everything, it's not an easy spot. And you're right about the power righties in that Cardinals lineup between Goldschmidt, Arenado. I wouldn't sleep on Tyler O'Neill. He's got tremendous power, huge strikeout numbers as well, but very nice power. Went deep last night. So tough lineup. I think I'm going to have a little bit of everything from this game, except for probably the Oviedo side. I think I'm going to have some Diamondbacks bats going against him. I really like what the D-backs offer in terms of positional flexibility on FanDuel. 4 guys in that projected starting lineup with positional flex and to different positions. So you really move them around the board a lot. I like what they do there. And then real quick, since we're both Yankee fans, Jason Dominguez as the centerpiece in a trade package that includes more, bringing back Ketel Marte and Mad Bum. Yes or no?
Oh, Jesus. I thought you were breaking news on me, bro.
No. I'm asking.
God dang. Yeah. So you said Ketel Marte and Peralta, is that what you said?
Ketel Marte and Mad Bum coming back for us, sending out Dominguez and a few other pieces.
I like the Marte part. So Jason Dominguez, man, he's one of the prospects I do like to hug, but I'd like to win this year. So if that's what it calls, I like Ketel Marte. Mad Bum I could do without, but I definitely would like Ketel Marte. So I'd probably hit the yes button on that just for the heck of it.
Yeah, I think I would too. And I just feel like Mad Bum's going to be a part of that discussion, but they're definitely talking about Ketel Marte. We need somebody out here who can play center a little bit more reliably than what we got right now. And his position flex and everything, I think he fits in nicely. So hopefully our Yanks make that happen. Cash, I'm sure Brian Cashman's watching us right now. So Cash, that one's a freebie. We've got the Angels with Shohei Ohtani going into Oakland, facing the Athletics with Sean Manaea on the hill. 7.5 total on the board, 3.49 implied for the Angels, 4.10 for the A's. We do not get Shohei Ohtani on the board on Fanduel. He's a $4,000 outfielder on the Fanduel slate, but he is available as a Draftkings pitcher. Talk to me about Ohtani. Talk to me about Manaea. What do we like about this game?
Man, FanDuel, there's no way they don't. That's crazy. That's unfortunate. Yeah. I think if we were ready to play Ohtani yesterday, there's no reason we won't play him today at 7-8. A little bit of a clown show as to why he didn't pitch yesterday, but I at 7.8K on DraftKings, I think he has a knock on the door for 20 DKP plus potential. And then Manaea. So I started the day yesterday low on not, I don't say low on Bassett, but he just wasn't on my radar. And then when I start digging into it, he ended up being my top pitcher before the Ohtani news came out. Like I was like, oh man, this guy is the play. And then when the lineup came out and Ohtani wasn't in it because we still expected to pitch, I was like, easily the top play on the board, and he went CG. So there's two things you take away from that. One, Manaea might be in a better spot than perceived, or two, they might go to bullpen quicker since Bassett gave everyone the day off if Manaea gets into a little trouble early on. Now, this Angels lineup projects a lot better against lefties than it does against righties. Outside of Upton, and Upton, I think, is turning it on as well, especially if he leads off against this lefty. I definitely think this is the spot where I don't want to pitch against the Angels. I think I want to attack them with righties for the when I can, if I have to go average level. But Manaea 8.5 on DK with 11.4% swing and strike rate, sub 4 Sierra, sub 4 xFIP. There's definitely ranges of outcomes where he drops a maybe top 6, top 7 fantasy score, and it wouldn't shock me if he got into that top 4 based on the Angels lack of hits lately. This lineup does not project to have Ohtani in it. Yesterday, when Ohtani was expected to pitch, he was not in the projected hitting lineup, so it does take out one of their bigger power bats, and you replace it with like Phil Gosselin, former, I think he was on the Phillies. And if you want to get to this Angels lineup, like it's Rendon and Upton as far as like household names, and then it gets a little yucky and there's not a ton of power, but they do hit for a decent average. So I think I'll have some Manaea at 8.5, and then my ownership levels on him will go up based on the rest of the board. But I do think this matchup today is tougher for the pitcher than it was for Bassett.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And then, we were just showing, I think, on the YouTube window there, the top pitchers tool, which is free today. And you can see on there, Sean Manaea ranking 5th on the DK slate in terms of probability of being a top 2. He's half the probability of the guys who are the top 4 there. And that list is Garrett Cole, Walker Buehler, Ryu, and Ian Anderson. 3 of those 4 guys are in games that we expect to get canceled by rain. So that could potentially rocket Sean Manaea all the way up to the second most likely starter to be in the top 2. He's currently getting under-owned. That's going to change around a lot. But like we've got him pegged at the same probability of success as Shohei Ohtani, and he's coming in at 8% owned, where Ohtani's pushing 40% owned.
Yeah.
That's insanity, right? So those are completely upside down numbers. So that's where the top starters tool is really, really handy. You can get a great look at the slate and kind of break it down in your head really quickly by looking at, all right, what's this guy's probability of being in the top 2? What's his value mark? That gives you an idea of what you're paying for the salary range. And then where is he getting owned by the field? And when you see those massive numbers, if Ohtani's getting owned 4 times as frequently as his probability of success, that begins to be a bit of a question mark, and then and that's before you start wrestling with the bus schedule in the Bay Area. So who knows? But yeah, the top pitchers tool free today on the site, guys. It's a great resource for that. So help you make some of these decisions. Moving on, we've got another interesting spot here. Oh, by the way, what is Justin Upton doing in the leadoff spot?
Last time
276 on base percentage.
he led off against a lefty like in the last week, and he homered at the first at bat. So maybe that's that.
About him fifth.
I know we've seen Eugenio Suarez do it too. Like a bat that's not alive, you put him in a top spot. I do think a guy like Upton's when you're leading off, you can sit on that first pitch fastball way more than any other spot in the lineup. So maybe that's what their plan is, to
looking for one pitch.
Yeah.
I like it. Moving on to the next game. We've got a couple more on deck to talk about here. Got the Giants with Anthony DeSclafani going into LA, facing the Dodgers with Walker Buehler. 7.5 run total in this one. 3.14 implied for the Giants, 4.45 for the favored Dodgers. Buehler is going to be one of my top end starters, particularly like we talked about. We're losing 3 of the 4 top guys. He'll be one of the top guys on Awesemo's board. Are you seeing it the same way with Buehler going up against what is a relatively difficult Giants lineup, but one that's striking out a lot against righties this year?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Buehler, I'll say he's correcting a lot of the stats from last year, right? He had the great 2018, 2019. Then last year, it was good for an average pitcher, but not great for what Walker Buehler had led us to believe he could be, that Sierra and X-Trip at 4. This year, it's looking a lot more like the older version of Buehler. He's gone 3 games in a row now with 7 innings. He'll knock on the door 30, but the fact that he can go 7 innings, sometimes can make up for, a 5 strikeout game in 7 innings just because he goes that extra mile. So yeah, I'm with you there. He could become my top owned pitcher based on some of the weather information we get throughout the day. But even as is, if all the games played, Buehler is probably one of my top 4 owned pitchers. With that, potentially going up. DeSclafani's not a guy that I've been getting behind so far this year, but I kind of feel like the Alex Wood spot where I do think he's better than 6,900. And that's the same price I believe Wood had. So if we lose a lot of the top end pitching, if 6,900 can net me, a shot at 18 DKP, I'll have some of my more risky pool guys that are capped at like 6 to 8%. So yeah, if DeSclafani was like 8K or more, I wouldn't touch him. But 6,900 on DK, I could probably have a couple shares of that.
Yeah, I think that definitely keeps him in play as an SP2 over there. Looking at the top pitchers tool, he ranks a little bit further down the board than the other guys we were talking about. But again, that's going to come up as these things change. And he slots right in alongside a lot of the Mad Bum, Justice Sheffield, Martin Perez. DeSclafani's right in that group with in terms of the probability of success. But he's getting lower owned than most of those guys for the matchup, right? People aren't excited to roster pitchers against this Dodgers team. So if you're willing to take on that risk, he makes some sense, and he's less expensive than most of those guys, some of whom by about 2,000. So that leaves you a lot to do with bats. Given a 12-game slate, there's a lot of different bats to choose from, a lot of different pricey bats that we want to pay up for. It's not one of these easy slates where, we can pick up whatever bats we want with the top-end starters. So I definitely think he makes sense to at least consider for some SP2 shares. Looks like he's the highest-ranked guy under 7,000 unless you're planning on rostering Casey Mize against the Yankees, which I would prefer to take DeSclafani here against both lineups are a little bit depleted, I guess, but I think the Yanks are maybe a little bit more healthy, maybe a little bit more quality than running out Albert Pujols, Yoshi Tsutsugo, and guys like that. Maybe just barely.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now that I'm thinking it through, I don't know.
DeSclafani pitched against the Dodgers a couple games back and finished with like minus 15. So I don't think anyone's going to go there, but baseball's baseball.
There you go. Any love for Giants shares coming back against Buehler, who should be at least somewhat popular, even despite the heavy pricing?
So I probably wouldn't get to a stack, but he does allow power, a 1.42 home run per 9 this season, over 1.5 last year. So if you get in love with one of these power lefties, maybe a Stremski, Alex Dickerson, somebody like that might someone over the fence. But it would just be kind of like floating one-offs. I don't think I'd commit to a full stack.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. No ownership on them. So, if you, like you said, if you fall in love with one of those bats, feel free to fire away, and they're not overly costly either. So that's easy enough. And then let's see, on the Dodgers side of things, it's basically about like the top 5, right? I mean, down to Chris Taylor. Is there any real reason to go down to Albert Pujols, who has been hitting for a little bit of pop since joining the Dodgers, Yoshi Tsutsugo, Gavin Lux from the left side of the plate. Any love for any of those guys down the bottom of that stack, or is it mostly about the top?
Gavin Lux is the only guy down there that I'd probably get behind. Everybody else, like Pujols and Sasuga. I started the Dodgers trolled me specifically because I'd like dubbed Sasuga as the worst DH in baseball, and then Pujols, we know his story, and then the Dodgers are like, you know what, we'll sign both of them and go out and win a World Series anyway
without the DH. Yeah, gotta love it. Gotta love it. Last game on deck might leave us a minute or two to jump into some home runs or some top stacks or something. We flew through these 12 games. So we've got the Rangers at the Mariners. Rangers coming in with Jordan Lyles on the hill. Mariners countering that with Justice Sheffield. 8.5 total on this one. 4.12 implied for the Rangers. 4.47 implied for the Mariners. I've been getting to some Mariners recently in terms of some stacks. I think their offense is a little bit interesting. So it's a spot I might get to here against Jordan Lyles. I haven't really put it together, but the profile for a little bit of pop in this spot for me. I don't think I'm going to go to either pitcher, but I'm getting an interesting little projection on Sheffield, and the Rangers are a team I've been attacking a little bit for some strikeouts this year. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, it's for me, it's more so the bats than anything. Jordan Lyles has 11.4% swing and strike rate going against a Mariners lineup that can present some strikeouts and an aptitude to hit the ball. Maybe Lyles surprises people with 5.3K. It's you start asking yourself, what's the worst I would take from 5.3K and still think I could have a shot to win? Maybe 15 gets you in the dance. You get some home run points from a 5K hitter. I don't really think I'll get there, but it's just a outlier thought, and probably no Sheffield for me here. But yeah, the bats are where I probably will be at on this game. If I'm picking on Sheffield, it's probably I guess righties here. Nick Solak, Adolis Garcia is just a monster. You mentioned Ketel Marte. I would love for the Yankees somehow manage that one. Adolis Garcia is somebody they DFA'd this year for Mike Foltynewicz, and he cleared and came back. And it's like, man, this guy was free for the league, and now he's like insane. So he sticks out to me as somebody to go after. And then Jordan Lyles, if I'm going to pick on him, I definitely want some power righties. So Mitch Haniger, definitely somebody that has a lot of pop and has several home runs to his name this season. So Haniger might take him Yabo. And then Jared Kelenic kind of hitting that slump here. He's had he had one big game and then it's been rough. And we see that a lot with these high prospects, that little curve that they hit when they finally get called up. And then they eventually figured it out, like Vladdy Guerrero right now is in MVP conversations. But when he first got called up last year, it was a diesel engine trying to get it going. So Kelenic, somebody I'm not giving up on, but he's more so that Fanduel price is just screaming at me at 2,400. It might be a little too cheap.
Yeah, big time. We've seen that price floating that range the last few days, and that's definitely a spot for me to jump on. And I really like when these kids come up, the high pedigree kids, they come up, they struggle a little bit. Everybody's excited the first day, and then everybody instantly forgets about them. And the talent is there. It's very, very real with this kid. So yeah, that's a spot. If he's going under owned, that's definitely a spot I'm going to jump on in stacks. And I think he makes a somewhat interesting one-off as well, power and some speed in him as well. So definitely a spot I can get to there. The Sheffield conversation is sort of interesting on FanDuel, at least. He's only 6,400 on the FanDuel slate. So it's not against lefties. Texas is not as terrible as they are striking out. They're 24.9% strikeout rate, so they're 10th worst in the league. Great runs, 5% worse than average, only a 147 ISO in the split. You mentioned the power bats to avoid. Their biggest power bat in Joey Gallo hits from the left side of the plate, doesn't do great against lefties. I think there's a little bit of sneaky upside for Chef, but yeah, 7,900 on DK, it's a different story. So I'd probably be avoiding it over there, maybe in consideration for a couple sneaky FanDuel shares. But Sheffield only striking out 17% of hitters this year, 1.57 WHIP, 4.64 xFIP. Not the greatest start for him either, so a little dicey. But we'll see what happens with all the rainouts and everything. We got a couple minutes at the end of the show here. We've done a great job flying through everything. You have a couple top stacks off the top of your list there that are really looking favorable for you that we could maybe circle back to? Anybody that we kind of flew through too quickly on the offensive side that you want to cover?
So when I just peek at the bomb detector, it looks like a lot of Cardinals at the top. So I probably lean on them a little bit, even though Mad Bone's been a lot better this season. Arizona Diamondbacks are looking pretty solid. We talked about Minnesota. That lineup, I think, is really, really nice against lefties. If it's this projected lineup, there's been a lot of times recently where I'm expecting Nelson Cruz to play and he doesn't. But that lineup's looking pretty dangerous against the lefty. And then I'm not overly concerned about that rules bullpen. And these are games. All these teams so far are not teams that I'm worried about weather with. And then if we dipped into the weather, I would say the White Sox are probably my favorite weather offense that I hope we get, and maybe the Braves.
The one that's really kind of interesting for me, just looking at our top stacks tool, and the top stacks is behind the paywall today, guys, but it's one of the biggest tools in the industry for getting a feel for the slate. It is phenomenal. It's something that I look at every day, part of my process, and a really good reason to take advantage of the $15.95 weekly price. The Milwaukee Brewers are sitting as our top ranked stack right now. They're an extreme value play on DK with the highest value rating on the board. They're getting a massive amount of ownership to the point where they're negative 9.4 leverage score. They were not really popping for me. I know we were talking about they returned to health a little bit, getting Yelich back, getting Kiston Hero called back up, but it's not the greatest lineup in the world. They're going up against a weak John Lester, and it's not, he's certainly a targetable pitcher. But with them, with that heavy negative leverage on a slate this size, is that a just spot you want to run screaming from, taking weather out of the equation in what is a bad weather spot?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't like at that ownership. No, but on a counterpoint, that with that being one of the games with the red light on it, where does that ownership flow to once it does get pulled off? So it would be fun to see how that kind of normalizes itself if they do make that call early enough. But yeah, that's a great example of a spot where I'd probably. On this size slate too, if everything played for that type of ownership, yeah, I wouldn't be in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. If we've got 24 teams to choose from, assuming that everything plays, there's just no need to get that deep on a team that isn't one of the better offenses in baseball. Like, it's not like we're talking about, the White Sox. It's not like we're talking about the Braves or even the Yankees here. It's the Brewers lineup that's been pretty bad. So yeah, they have a few guys, Avi Garcia hits lefties really well. I can understand how people are getting there, but once we see those indicators and those numbers, it makes sense to get away from that, despite the pricing and some of the positive indicators. Just ride better teams and ride better leverage. Talk to me about power. What are we seeing in the bomb detector? You have a home run call in mind? I haven't teed mine up yet. I usually drop mine for the first time in the column, but I can talk a little bit about what I'm seeing in the power anyway.
So yeah, my top non-pitcher is Paul Goldschmidt, which is ironic because I thought yesterday he might get one. We drew a walk his first at bat. Whenever my bomb call draws a walk in his first at bat, it drives me nuts because I lose one of the matches I studied for. But I got him at a 4.3 rating. The only guy higher, ironically, is Mad Bum. I got him up here looking dicey for a homer today. So if that happens, I'll never doubt the bomb detector again. But like I said, it's all of the Cardinals at the top there. I got goalie Molina, Arenado, and then Manny Pena, despite our Brewers take, is floating around up there as well. And then a couple White Sox, Moncada, Grandal, and then Duval. A lot of these guys that I don't even know will actually be on the slate.
Yeah, that's the challenge, is most of these guys we're going to name in this section are playing in a lot of those rain games. But yeah, I'm getting to throw on top of that, I'm getting decent marks on a couple of the obvious guys from our Yankees in Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. No surprise there. Similar with some of the Boston guys in JD Martinez, Rafael Devers. No surprise there. I'm getting the St. Louis guys popping up in my home run model, just like you are. Tyler O'Neill would be on my list there as well. Mentioned him before. Getting a nice mark on Vladdy, not a shocker. And then Mitch Haniger, who we talked about, has knocked, I think, 13 out of the park so far this year. Not overly expensive, not overly popular. Nice little mark on Mitch in my model here. Teoscar Hernandez goes along with the Toronto numbers there. So looking at probably some Toronto, St. Louis, New York, Boston, some obvious names in there, and then some Seattle like I threw in. So I like those spots. Think we can get some offense out of there. I'll have my MLB article up in a couple hours. You can get my home run pick in there. Got anything to plug for you? What's your Twitter handle? At Gundacker, right?
Yeah, at Gundacker.
Right on. That's as far as I know. I'm at DigitalB21 on the Twitter machine out there, guys. We appreciate the hang. We've got going to jump off about 90 seconds ahead of schedule here, I think, unless you've got any final thoughts about weather, anything like that. All right, we can consume our last 60 seconds talking about that. How do you handle these weather games in terms of running your crunches? Like, do you leave things in the pool if they're looking dicey, but that game doesn't start till 8 o'clock and you got to get a crunch done? Is that a spot where you're taking games out of your pool just on spec? How do you kind of handle that going into these situations?
Yeah, I mean, one, is the game worth it if it didn't rain, right? Secondly, luckily today, like only Garrett Cole is going to impact me pitching wise. Maybe Ian Anderson, like I would want those two. Garrett Cole, like we said, could be the highest scorer on the slate no matter what. And then if it rained a little bit, I'd be worried about him pitching in the rain. And then if we got a delay, it would be a death sentence. So I definitely would try and set it to where I could stagger Today, a lot of those rain games are within 10 minutes at the top of the slate, right? 7:10 p.m. is our second round, is like the Indians tip off. So we should have all those answers early enough. It's the middle of the night rain stuff, like when Coors Field is on the slate and we're not sure that they're going to play, is where the headaches really come up. But I think we should have answers for all of these first 4 games, maybe first 5 games, with enough time to get our optos going.
Yeah, the Orioles and White Sox at 8 o'clock would be, the potential that would be at risk coming into lock. But hopefully we'll have some answers. Guys, that wraps it up for us. We appreciate everybody hanging out. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much, Gun. Great job. Thanks, Chris, behind the scenes. We're out of here.